Hey there, boys and girls. This is Miss Harrington here, and today we're going to go over how to make an inference. So we're going to talk about how do you use text details to support an inference that you make based on something that you have read. So we're going to go through this example page together, and then we're going to answer a few questions. So our learning target today, what we want to learn is when you make an inference about a text, you can support it with quotes from that text. So direct text evidence. So follow along with me. When you read, you can look for what an author says directly. You can also use what you already know and details from the text to come up with your own ideas about what the author is saying. This process is called making an inference. So let me show you what I mean by that. So when we make an inference, you need two things. The first thing that you need would be text details. Then you're going to use what you already know. So information you already have in your brain. Those two things combined will equal an inference. And this is important to use the text details and what you already know because the author of the text is never going to tell you what the inference is that you should be making. So let's look back at this practice. It says that you should always be able to support an inference with evidence. Quotes from the text are a strong form of evidence. So when you take something directly word from word from the text that you're reading, that's the strongest way to support what you think your inference should be. So we're going to do a little activity. It says, look at the picture below. Make an inference about what just happened. Then circle any evidence in the picture that supports your inference. So let's look at what we see here. So I see a man, and he's looking maybe at his dinner table, and he says, where did my steak go? So I'm going to assume he's eating dinner because he's eating steak. So I see an empty plate. He's got a fork in his hand like he was ready to eat. He's asking this question here about where did it go? And then look under the table. I see a dog that is drooling. I see what looks like a bone, and I see these Z's, which typically in a cartoon means that the dog is asleep. So we're going to use these clues, this text evidence, to figure out and make the best inference possible. So let's look at this next page. So in this page it says, or on this page it says, what have you learned about making inferences? So let's go back to what we know. We know text details plus what you already know equals your inference. So what it asks us to do here, it says use the chart below to help you develop and support an inference about what happened to the boy's steak. So the first column here says what's in the image. So what was our evidence? So what did we circle? So we have the boy asking the question, where did my steak go? We see an empty plate. We see what looks like a bone under the table. And then we see a drooling and sleeping dog. So this is the evidence that we're going to use to help us make our inference. So now look at the what I know. So this is based on things that we know about real life and maybe even experiences that we have had. Now, I know a lot of us have probably had a dog. Well, what do we know about dogs? Yeah, they like dog food. They'll eat their dog food, but what do they really, really love? People food. So we already know that dogs love to eat people food. Maybe like a steak. So what else do we know? Well, dogs, just like humans, when you eat a whole lot, you tend to feel a little bit sleepy after eating a big meal. So feeling sleepy after a meal is something we already know. And then something else that we might know, or we might want to note, is that it's unclear to the boy what has happened. Probably why? Because that dog is under the table. So typically, I know in my house with my dog loves to sneak under the table all the time, and I don't necessarily know that she's there until all of a sudden I feel someone licking on my leg because they want my food. So we know that sometimes pets will hide to try and get what they want. So, based on the evidence from the image and things that we already know based on our experiences, we now want to make the strongest inference that we can. So he doesn't know where his steak is. There's an empty plate. And then under that table, we see a drooling and sleeping dog with a bone next to him. We know dogs love to eat people food. We know that dogs, animals, people tend to feel a little sleepy after a meal. And for those of us that have experience with pets, we typically know that pets are going to hide when they're trying to get something that they want. So I think that our best inference would be, and we always like to say, I infer. So we're going to say, I infer that the dog ate the steak. So that's how we make an inference. We use the evidence plus our experience, what we already know, and those two things together equals our inference. So until next time, guys.